I caught all 227 shiny Pokemon in Legends ZA. From Chikorita to Metagross, every Pokemon with the exception of the legendaries can be found shiny in Lumio City, and this is how I hunted down every last one of them. It was grueling, but I hope it helps in your shiny hunting endeavors. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, and I'd really appreciate it if you threw a super thanks in the comments, as this challenge took over 550 hours in the span of a month. Oh yeah, and my card just completely died, so I really could use the help. Blunders aside, let's catch some shinies. Now, if I went in order as to what I hunted, we would be darting all over the place, so I'm giving not only myself, but you folks some structure. I'm gonna go one by one through each area, otherwise I'd be bouncing around like a goddamn ping pong ball around waiting for respawn timers to kick in. With that said, I'm actually starting off with 5 shinies straight away in Patrat, Watchog, Mareep, Weedle, and Dragalge. This is technically a part 2, quote-unquote, of sorts of my 100%ing Legends ZA mixed with the Professor Oak's challenge video that I uploaded at the beginning of November 2025, and I managed to get all of those just randomly, with the exception of Mareep being from the Guaranteed Side mission. Patrat and Watchog, frankly, you can get from so many places, but I would probably recommend Nouveau Cafe number 2, where you'll be fast traveling at night to get the likes of Magikarp, Ghastly, Spritzee, Swirlix, Ariados, and of course Patrat within the vicinity. Weedle itself is insanely accessible, actually, both from the bench in the top of Wild Zone 18 right next to it, where you would be bench hunting Fennekin, as well as fast traveling to Wild Zone 4 when you're hunting for the likes of Ekans, Ghastly, or Onedge. As for Dragalge, it just showed up in Wild Zone 20, and if you're hunting down every one of the starters and their evolutions, that's 18 Pokemon in and of themselves, so you're bound to just run into one by accident. With those 5 in hand, though, there's 222 more to go, and I've got the Shiny Charm in hand, so there's a boatload of areas to get through and methods to hunt with. Let's start in Wild Zone 3, since Zone 1 has nothing worth hunting that we won't find elsewhere aside from Pichu. Then again, you don't even hunt it in Zone 1 itself, and Zone 2 has a single Pokemon worth going after that might show up elsewhere, so let's just start here. Zone 3 is the easiest hunt of all time, since all you have to do is enter this building to go to the top, then go back down, each time reloading the area and spawning all of the Pokemon on the closer side of the zone, but not only those, but the Pokemon in the city itself behind you like Pidgey, Scatterbug, Vivillon, Badoo, Spritzee, and Swirlix. Now, you could just hold down on your control stick to do this hunt, but I'd suggest just throwing a hair tie or rubber band on your controller like this in order to let the hunt just happen naturally, with the exception of day and night changes, since the camera angle will change on you and you might get KO'd by the Alpha Litleo at the bottom or Alpha Fletchling at the top. Speaking of Litleo though, I'm not going for gender differences, I'm simply going for dex entries for what ZA and Pokemon Home would count as caught. However, if you want to go for gender differences, I'll mention a few as I go, but just know they are not a priority for me whatsoever. Another side note, since some of these hunts were more automated than others, I had a hard time literally staying awake while waiting. When I'm recording gameplay footage, I have a habit of pulling my couch up to my desk and moving my normal desk chair away just for comfort during the long sections. And the only way I can stay awake through that is with gamer subs. Now, this isn't a sponsor, simply an affiliation with them, since I genuinely love their products. Their keto-friendly, aspartame-free, caffeinated, and non-caffeinated beverage mixes are part of my daily routine. I'll drink like 2 or 3 servings a day just to balance out having regular water, and the caffeine doesn't result in any sort of crash. Plus, they've got a sleep aid called AFK that has both melatonin and melatonin-free varieties. I've been using the latter, and it's helped a ton on nights where I'm suffering from pretty nasty insomnia. Case in point, one of the days I was working on this video, I had to take off because I was having my heart pound for like 6 hours straight and I just needed sleep. It was horrible. But this actually helped in getting me to sleep. For recommendations, I'd go with anything on my Black Friday panel here, with Cinder's Pyropower being one of my favorites for the caffeinated and non-caffeinated beverages thanks to the tea and pomegranate flavor mix, and for the next 24 hours after this video's posting, my code Chaotic Meat using my affiliate link in the description will get you not only 10% off, but double 20% off, only costing 32 cents a serving. Though if you're watching after the day this video uploads, you can still get 10% off and support the channel thanks to the kickback I receive from them. But if you'd like to try them first before committing to a purchase, they have free samples that you just have to pay the shipping on, which is like $4 for a few different flavors. I genuinely would appreciate it though, considering this video required over 500 hours of gameplay, 276 hours of footage to sift through, and nearly an hour-long video to script, voiceover, and edit, becoming my largest project I've ever made on this channel, let alone in my entire life. So I'd very much appreciate the support, plus you get a great product in return at a very reasonable price. Thank you for listening to my shilling, and would you look at that? That was enough time for me to check through the area, getting 2 Skiddo, evolving 1 into Go-Go at level 32, 2 Litleo, evolving 1 into Pyroar at level 35, 2 Pancham, 1 evolving into Pangoro at level 32 with a Dark type in the party, 3 Flabebe, 1 to remain in the box, the second to evolve into Floette at level 19, and the final to evolve into Florges with a Shiny Stone, 3 Fletchling, not only the alpha at the top, but from the market stand behind Wild Zone 3, evolving 1 into Fletchinder at level 17, and the last into Talonflame at level 35, then the rest in range, but outside Zone 3, we've got 3 Pidgey from this lamppost behind Zone 3, with the second evolving into Pidgeotto at level 18, and the last into Pidgeot at level 36. There's 2 Scatterbug, 1 evolving into Spupa at level 9, a Vivillon, 1 Budew, then finally 2 Swirlix, one of which being traded with friend of the channel Jason Graves to evolve into Slurpuff. He was very helpful in getting the evolution footage for every trade evo in this video, so I'd highly recommend checking out his videos. It'd be criminal if he's not at 30,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Shilling friends aside, you can also get Spritzy in these market stands behind Zone 3 in place of Swirlix, as they're a 50-50 chance of getting one or the other. But if you don't get them here, there's like 3 other locations that they may pop out elsewhere, so no need to fret about them now, and I'll point them out when they come. Speaking of, what is the range for spawning shinies? Well, when you spawn in from a fast travel, or in this case from entering and exiting this structure over and over again, anything within a 50 unit radius of the player character will spawn in. Hence my inability to get Pikachu or Esper, as they don't normally spawn within that 50 unit radius. Esper has a small chance of appearing there, hence why I was able to get a single one over the course of, hours probably, but I highly recommend not using the tower method for those, instead using the benches on the other side of Zone 3. The easiest way to do this is just to, again, throw a hair tie or rubber band on the left stick and mash A to cycle day and night to refresh the spawns over and over again, but if you have a turbo controller laying around such as the 8-Bit Do Pro 2, you can easily update your firmware and pair it with your Switch 2, allowing you to throw your hair tie or rubber band on the left stick and enact turbo functionality on the A button, throwing a chip clip on there and boom, overnight you've got yourself an AFK hunting machine that you can leave on at work or, like I said, overnight. I sure as heck would not have managed to get every shiny Pokemon in the game before the DLC releases without this, and while I don't have an affiliate link, you can find them on eBay or Amazon for about 40 bucks, half the price of the Switch 2 Pro controller, and compatibility with both PC emulation and Steam games, along with the turbo functionality and Switch usage. I think it's 100% worth it, but that aside, with that bench method, I'm able to sit there over and over again until I get my second Esper, evolving into Meowstic at level 25, as well as 2 Pikachus, with one evolving into Raichu with the Thunderstone, complete with a few weeks to spare before those Mega Evolutions are in the grasps of players. Now, what about Pichu? There's no breeding, so how do we get that one? Well, same bench method, different area, using this bench outside of Wild Zone 1 since it happens to be in the 50 unit radius of the Wild Zone 1 spawn, on the only place in the entire game with a Pichu. And thanks to the Shiny Charms boosted 1 in 1024.38 odds, which by the way, why is it 0.38? Did Game Freak just not know how to program a rounding solution? Like, seriously. I was able to leave my controller and the game running overnight. While Pichu was the main goal as well, I completely forgot that there were 2 Baniri spawns within range on the outside, so I may as well grab those, evolving 1 into Lopunny with High Friendship before capturing Pichu to continue. I should also mention, I think this is common knowledge for those playing the game by this point, but shinies do not despawn under any circumstances, except for if you have more than 10 spawned in at the same time, and one other situation I'll mention a bit later. On to Zone 2, during the night, there's an easy fast travel method to be able to hunt for the night-exclusive Staryu, as well as some others like Magikarp and the other Budew that I didn't end up nailing down during the Zone 3 hunt. Since your fast travel point is within a 50 unit radius of those Pokemon, including the static Alpha, I just gotta repeatedly fast travel and check about every 50 or so visits, catching myself a second Budew, evolving into Roselie with High Friendship, and don't worry about the final stage. We're pretty much guaranteed to find one in Wild Zone 20, similarly to Dragalge due to the massive starter hunt. I also ended up with a Magikarp, finishing off with 2 Staryus, including that Static Alpha, which I evolved straight into Starmie with a Water Stone. I'm still a big fan of the Mega Evolution this thing got and how it's a reference to Starman Jr. from Earthbound. Oh, what I would give to be able to play that game for the first time again. Though I admit watching my VTuber friend Leah Asimov go through the game for the first time is the closest I'll get to that experience. Tangents aside, Magikarp pops in so many areas, so there's no need to finish off the evolution line here. Instead, how about heading to Wild Zone 4? Frankly, the only Pokemon you kinda want to shiny hunt here is Spinarak, as the Ghastly line is available in a breadth of areas for hunting, one especially for the Elemental Monkeys, as well as Nouveau Cafe No. 2 with Spritzy and Swirlix, or even while bench hunting Riolu since that does cycle the time to night, while the On-Edge line is available in Lysander Labs. But nonetheless, during the night, I did manage to grab myself 2 Spinarak, evolving 1 into Ariados at level 22, a single On-Edge, and during the day I got an Ekans, replacing On-Edge as the daytime encounter. Speaking of, though, there's really no need to hunt here anymore with the Spinarak line in the box, as, like I said, the other lines are available elsewhere, namely the Lysander Labs. This is genuinely one of the easiest places to hunt various Pokemon, as all you need to do is go up to various teleporters and mash A, as they'll cause new spawns of Pokemon within the 50-unit radius of you teleporting in, with some caveats. For some reason, the teleporters interact strangely with On-Edge, Ekans, and Arbok, as well as the Beldum line in specific. So instead of using a teleporter over and over, you'll want to spawn in the On-Edges, fast travel back to the entrance, then begin your teleporter spam. From there, I was able to finish off the line by getting 2 more On-Edges, evolving one into Doublade at level 35, and the other into Aegislash with the Duskstone. Ekans and Arbok are pretty simple to do as well, just passing through the On-Edge and Doublade room all the way down into the room where the Alpha spawns to get them to initially spawn, then by fast traveling to the entrance and taking the same teleporter here as we did with the On-Edge line, that's going to spawn the Ekans and Arbok in that room while returning back to the entrance teleporter, nailing me the second of the line, evolving straight into Arbok. As for Beldum and its cohorts, same deal. We have to run from the entrance all the way to the room where they spawn, fast travel back to the entrance, then take the teleporter closest to the Houndoom to the right of the entrance of Lysander Labs, then just keep firing this one over and over again. Not only are you hitting the 2 Beldum spawns, you're also hitting the Electrike and Manectric right outside of the first teleporter room you're going back and forth from, as well as that Houndoom we passed to get here, making it super easy for me to get a Beldum, Metang, a second Beldum to evolve all the way up at level 45 for Metagross, as well as Houndoom, and notably, Noivern is actually within range here over this wall, with Manectric being the final hurdle. I could not for the life of me, though, get Electrike to spawn shiny here, despite leaving it on overnight, so I just decided to pass on it since it's also available in Wild Zone 5. Speaking of, this is a really fun zone, since not only are you hunting Wild Zone 5, you're also hunting Wild Zone 16 since both are back-to-back with each other. Every Pokemon spawns in range of the fast travel point to Zone 5, with the exception of Abra for Zone 5, which is on the rooftops, and Phalanx for Zone 16. But both of these have their own easy hunting methods that I'll mention later. I just checked every 50 or so fast travels during the day, specifically because the night spawns of Zone 16 are Barbaracle and Starmie, 2 that you can get way easier elsewhere, whereas the daytime has Medicham. It's crazy how many Pokemon can be added to the shiny dex from here, with Zone 5 providing 2 Bunnelby, one of which evolving into Diggersby at level 20, 2 Venipede, one of which evolving into Whirlipede at level 22, 2 Bellsprout, one evolving into Weepinbell at level 21, and the bane of my existence, Electrike, which took hours of resets within both Lysander Labs and Wild Zone 5 to get, being the last Pokemon I found for the area. Seriously, because of this being the one spawn for it in Wild Zone 5 and it's packed deep into the area within the 50-unit radius, it was so much of a pain for hours to find. I mean, God, I think I had an easier time RNG manipulating one in Ruby and Sapphire when I got all of the shiny Pokemon in that game. Link in the iCard on the top right and in the description if you're curious. Open it in a new tab and check it out after this. Don't worry about Victory Bell yet though, there's plenty of other incidental areas that Bellsprout shows up in that I'm bound to get one by accident. As for Wild Zone 16, since we're here, there's a boatload of Pokemon in here with Medicham during the day, Flaffy, the Static Alpha Ampharos, Barbaracle during the night, and the only place to find it, 3 Froakie at the top of the spire in the middle of the area, evolving 1 into Frogadier at level 16 and the last into Greninja at level 36. Looking forward to finally going online to get the Greninjite to see this fella's shiny Mega Evolution for the first time. As for Phalanx being the last Pokemon in Zone 16, it's super easy to just get one by fast traveling to Zone 16 over and over rather than Zone 5. With 4 spawns within range of the entrance, you're bound to get it within a few dozen fast travels like I did. Getting back to the proper order here though, Wild Zone 6 only has 3 Pokemon of interest, with 2 of them being in range of fast traveling right at the entrance of the area in Binacle and Houndour to finish off both of those lines, but by fast traveling to the cafe in the middle of the zone, that's the ticket to being in range of Meditite, finishing off a 3rd evolution line as well after about 150 fast travels. It's hard to keep up the number of encounters with such an open game like this, and I genuinely don't recommend doing it with the exception of the fossil hunts as they're unaffected by the shiny charm and remain at the default 1 in 4096 odds. Or the fire type starters in Zone 20, but more on that in a bit. Oh, more on that in a bit. Technically, there are some other Pokemon in Zone 6, like the previously caught Baniri or Swablu, but frankly they're out of range for any bench or fast travel, so Baniri is better hunted when you're doing Pichu, and Swablu is better left for Zone 18. Now for Wild Zone 7, there's only one Pokemon you absolutely 100% need to pick up here, and that's Hippopotas during the daytime, as it doesn't spawn anywhere else. Hippowdon is much better left for Wild Zone 20, since dear god you are going to get it before you nail down all 6 of the Fire-type starters. Shifting to night just in case though, I went for the Shuppet chance, and managed to nail one down as well as a Vanillish, mostly because yeah, they're easy to get here, but there are a few other areas to try and I wanted to see which one worked better. More on that shortly. Moving to Wild Zone 8, this is one of the first quote-unquote complex zones. Though it starts off with just a boatload of fast travel hunting, just keep going to Zone 8 over and over and over and over and over again. Funnily enough, within the 50 unit radius is a pocket of area near Wild Zone 19 that houses a few Trubbish and an Alpha Garbodor, both of which I was able to nail down before grabbing most of Zone 8. With a Sandile, 2 Krokorok, including an Alpha that makes it easy to evolve into Krookodile at level 40, 2 Drillbur, one becoming Excadrill at level 31, 2 Machop, one becoming Machoke at level 28, a Gibble, surprisingly, since that is an 8% encounter compared to Drillbur's 92%, and a Numel, as well as another one to get Camerupt at level 33. As for the 3rd Machop, I'll come back around with Wild Zone 12 since it also spawns there, but as for the other 2 in the Gibble line, here's where things get tricky. During this video's creation, a technique was developed called spawn overloading. To put simply, you're overloading one of the game's spawners with all of the potential Pokemon it can yield because that spawner can potentially yield different sub-spawns. It's kind of complicated. In this case, it's shoving both Drillbur and Gibble into spawning at the same time using these 6 different points labeled on the map. I also need to give a huge amount of credit to Papa Hefe and Panfro Games specifically for showing this technique on a larger stage, and I'd highly suggest checking them both out for a more in-depth explanation. In short though, I need to get an Alpha Drillbur to spawn in one of these 6 hole locations. These are the only ones high enough level to learn Dig, and once they do, I need to run like a bat out of hell outside of Zone 8, and when it surfaces I need to save the game before it re-aggros and hard reset to establish a new leash. Essentially, a Pokemon will stop following you somewhere around 50 to 60 units from where it initially spawned, or where it was saved, hence why it stayed outside of the area when I closed and reopened the game. All I have to do from here is aggro Drillbur until it's outside of the leash, then let it run back until it hits this middle stair, save the game, hard reset, then make a point on the map to make sure I go exactly 65 units away from Drillbur, save, reset, and now there should be an overloaded spawn. And there it is, now there's 2 Drillbur and 1 Gibble in that set of 6 holes, and if I fast travel back, it will fill in 4 of the 6 rather than just 3, complete with a guaranteed Gibble. Repeat this process 2 more times, and now you have 3 guaranteed Gibbles. The last step of this process is isolation. The easiest way to do this is to KO literally every other Pokemon in the zone, with the exception of the 6 Pokemon in those holes, then keep spawning in until when on your right of spawn, all 3 holes are filled with Gibble. From there, just run 70 units away to get them to despawn, but you won't despawn the Drillburs in the other 3 holes, ensuring that these spawns will always be Gibble. Do that twice, and that's Gabite and Garchomp. Not too hard, but definitely the weirdest hunt so far, and the most that you need to exploit the absolute heck out of the game to make the hunt even really that feasible. Wild Zone 9's up next, and it has 3 Pokemon I'm looking for, those being Carbink from a bench hunt at the top of the area, and on the bottom there's a bench that reaches both a Sableye and a Mawile spawn. I ended up getting the shiny Sableye first, and because of that there's a much simpler way to get Mawile. Back up to the rooftops that I was using to hunt Carbink, simply running back and forth to despawn these 3 Mawile at 70 units and spawn them back in at 50 units ended up yielding me a shiny Mawile on the left side in less than half an hour. Unfortunately, fast travel methods don't work on Pokemon that are on a much higher elevation than you, but for some reason it works for Pokemon below you as long as it's within 50 units. Case in point, Wild Zone 10. There is a bench here that will be instrumental in getting the Dynamo line, though in this case I only grabbed 2 of them, evolving one into Electric at level 39, as you never know what Alpha Pokemon will spawn in Zone 20 center area. Though I should also mention, if you're going for a good Watchog location, there's an even higher up bench that's still in range of Dynamo to shiny hunt at the same time. The rest are plenty easy enough, as the fast travel method yields 3 Slowpoke, one to evolve into Slowbro at level 37, and another to evolve into Slowking with a trade holding the King's Rock. Thank you again, Jason, for grabbing the Evo footage for me. And within that same range, there's 2 Carvana, one evolving into Sharpedo at level 30. This is also a fine place to find Staryu with the bench method or Bellsprout with the fast travel method, but I didn't find any myself. Again, we'll get Victory Bell eventually, I suppose. 96 Pokemon down, and moving on to the second half of the Wild Zones with 11. While you can do fast traveling here, I probably wouldn't recommend it. You're only in range of a single Stunfisk spawn, as well as a single Clauncher spawn that is an 85% chance of being Clauncher, but also a 15% chance of being Gyarados. Case in point, I got one of them instead of the damn Clauncher. Then again, I did need it for the running count, so I guess accidental win? However, on the other side of the area, there's a handy-dandy bench that is not only in range of both of those Pokemon, but if you'd rather not do the fast travel method for Wild Zone 10, you can get yourself a Slowpoke and a static Alpha Slowbro if you really wish, as there are Carvanas and a static Alpha Sharpedo that are in range of the bench in Wild Zone 10. As for me, I just needed the Stunfisk, thank you for the shiny Alpha, as well as 2 Claunchers, one of which evolving into Clawitzer at level 37. That's it for Zone 11, though. That's efficient, because, dear God, don't try getting Inkay here. So on to Zone 12, and my God, there is a boatload of Pokemon in here, and a super easy bench right smack dab in the middle of the area that makes shiny Pokemon a cinch. I mean, seriously, I just left this on for a few hours, and I got myself 2 more Vanillite, evolving one into Vanillish at level 35 and the other into Vanillix at level 47, 2 Bergmite, one evolving into Avalugg at level 37, a Snover, a Static Alpha Abomasnow, a Delibird, and 3 Snowruns, thankfully the first of which being female, so I could save it after evolving another into Glalie at level 42, giving the female a Dawnstone to get Frostlass. Last but not least, I just shifted benches towards this battle court in the zone to grab my last Machop, trading to get myself Machamp. Easy double-digit shinies in one zone right there, cannot beat that, though I should also mention we're already over triple digits in total. Now, of course, it might seem like these are flying in because of the amount of time you've spent in this video being only a hair over 20 minutes, but remember, this is like a half hour of shiny hunting here, 15 minutes there, 45 minutes there, and sure, we're getting a lot of spawns, but by this point, I've already poured over 200 hours into recording footage for this video, and we're not even halfway done, so let's get a move on. Wild Zone 13 is a bit wonky, as there's 3 different ways you can go about getting some of the Pokemon here. Firstly, there's the fast travel method that we've been abusing to heck and back, with a little bit of run up to the door to ensure the Alpha Trevenant spawns in during the night. But it's a little too long-winded to use this for the likes of Heracross or Scyther also at night towards the back of the Wild Zone. I instead would recommend using this bench on the other side of this big, almost key-shaped building, as it's within range of everything not named Phantump or Trevenant. There's also a single bench on the rooftop of that key-shaped building nearby an Alpha Spritzy, so if you want to hunt for that here, by all means, as it's within range of the Heracross, though I did have a hard time reaching the Weepinbell or Scyther spawns that are during the day or night respectively. Considering, again, there's better places for Spritzy, and I'm not looking for an Alpha specifically, I just stuck to the fast travel method to get Pinsir, Phantump, and the Alpha Trevenant, very nice that I don't have to trade this, then closed out with the AFK bench method to get Heracross, 2 Scyther, one of which evolving into Scizor via trade with a Metal Coat, and oh thank god a Weepinbell! Finally, 1 Leaf Stone later and that's Victory Bell. Though even if you don't get it here, there's still great areas to find them. Heck, maybe even just one area if we're being honest. Moving on to 14, this is probably the most irritating area of the entire game in my opinion, as I probably spent the second most time out of any other Wild Zone here behind Wild Zone 20. And that's because there are 2 very finicky Pokemon here in Onix and Helioptile. Of course, the easiest ones to get are through the fast travel method, where Aeron and Lairon show up, as well as a Mulga just sitting on top of one of the metal crates. But now it's time for the Onix challenge. Remember the spawn overload we did with the holes that contained Drillbur and Gibble? Well, now we've got to do it again, this time tricking the Drillbur into this corner of Wild Zone 14 with Dig, saving as soon as they're out of their spawn tether because that breaks their aggro and lets you save, establishing a new tether with a hard reset, then going 65 units away from their pinned location to cause an overload after another save and hard reset, and boom, that's an overloaded spawn. It's easiest, I've gathered, to just do it with the two rightmost spawners compared to when you're just fast traveling in. To the right, there are going to be two separate holes. The left ones are way more finicky and can be screwed up very easily, so I'd rather just get both of those going. And hey, no harm, no foul, because both Onyxes showed up within the same 50 or so fast travels. Not gonna lie, this hunt went way easier than trying to nail down several frame-perfect inputs while trying to RNG manipulate myself an Onyx in my Fire Red and Leaf Green Shiny Professor Oaks challenge, which I'd highly recommend you open a new tab either from the iCard on the top right-hand corner of your screen or from the link in the description. As for Helioptile, the only time they show up is A, during the day, and B, only during sunny weather. There are 3 spawns in particular that do this, though this is the only one in a wild zone that follows this pattern. The easiest way I found to take care of them was by KOing Helioptile on a day where I know after 2 real-life minutes it will still be sunny outside, then within that 2 minutes KOing literally everything else in the zone, and thanks to that I'm able to save right before the 2 minutes has elapsed through the power of stopwatches, and then hard reset on every spawn, keeping all other Pokemon out of the way and only allowing for the 2 Helioptile to spawn in and take the 1 in 1024.38 roll. Call it shiny hunting brainworms, I call it dear god if I see another Drillbur, I'm gonna drill it in a blender and make soup out of its entrails. Thankfully, this resulted in 2 Helioptiles, after a few hours of hard resetting of course, evolving one into Heliolisk with a Sunstone. Didn't count the first one, but the second one only took 304 encounters. Not too shabby. Alright, Wild Zone 15, we're officially bridging the gap between this and Wild Zone 16 that we ended up doing by proxy of Zone 5. And this one is odd to say the least. You remember that time when I said that there are 2 reasons for shinies to not stay in the overworld when being loaded in? Well, this is the other place, because the Pumpkaboos just... I would have to imagine it just has to do with the way this side mission here requires you to get a big Chungus Pumpkaboo and how it interacts with the zone, but make 1000% sure you're checking every time that you load in, otherwise they will despawn. However, we're not just fast traveling into the area, rather there's another cafe similar to Zone 6 that's fast travelable right into the middle of the action. It's a great place for the likes of Haunter or Bayonet during the night, or Scolipede or Beedrill during the day, but I sure as heck didn't get any of them. The only Pokemon I was here for was Pumpkaboo, nailing down 2 of them during the night, one of which being an Alpha. Well, I'm not evolving that given there's a static Alpha Gourgeist right there, but the other is more than capable of evolving after a trade, putting me up to 127 Pokemon. Only 100 more to go. Now if we take a trek to the top of the zone, there is a spawn of 2 Larvitar. Great area, by the way. In fact, if you want to manually hunt this, I'd highly recommend KOing all of them at the same time with Earthquake, then just doing the same technique done with Helioptile to hard reset for your shiny Larvitar line. But I'm more interested in doing an AFK hunt that also takes care of the elemental monkeys, as there's 6 of those, and only one great place to hunt them, and it happens to be in range of another Larvitar. But they're not in a wild zone, so it's off to Wild Zone 17 first. Oh boy, we see holes! It's time for more spawn overloading! This is definitely in the top 10 most notorious hunts in the entire game, and it's Chespin. People continually phasing on Diggersby? Nah, couldn't be me. Instead, I'm KOing all of these stupid-ass lions, luring all 3 of the Pokemon to the exit on the other side from the holes, and once they're up to the door, exit, save, and hard reset, then enter and put in your pin down to go 65 units away. Save and hard reset again, then lure them back to where the holes are, and boom, overloaded spawns. I could only get 5 holes to show up at a time despite there being 3 initial holes, but that's still enough for 2 guaranteed Chespin at a time. Combine that with perfect bench placement, and that's an easy way to nail down my first shiny Chespin after about 2 hours. From there, I just simply set it up again and nailed down the other 2 at the same time after an admittedly horrible night's rest. I swear, the only thing I was dreaming about was shiny hunting, and it was not the most pleasant thing when looking for a break away from the screen. Regardless, Quilladin and Chestnut were both mine after evolving them at level 16 and 36 respectively. Now there's only one other Pokemon I'd suggest hunting here, and that's Skarmory. With a caveat, only at night, and only when this specific section of the Infinite ZA Royale is spawned in. Reason being, it gives you a fast travel point to the other side of Wild Zone 17, the one where I initially led the whole spawns up to for overloading, as Skarmory actually spawns on the ground, then flies into the air, therefore bypassing the nonsense of having to get to its elevation for shiny hunting. For those looking for all gender variation as well, this is a great place for you to grab a male Pyroar, assuming you got the much more likely female Litleo in Wild Zone 3, though this one is always guaranteed to be an alpha. Not great if you're looking for one to use online, as alpha Pokemon are just big-ass targets waiting to be decimated, but that's competition aside. I just kept fast-traveling over and over again, eventually seeing one Pyroar shiny, two Pyroar shinies, the alpha male Pyroar shiny, and a fourth Pyroar shiny before Skarmory finally shined green, letting me snag it after a bit of hard work and finagling to ensure it didn't disappear on me during the day-night transition. Also, don't worry about Klefki or Litwick here. They're both much better off being hunted in the sewers. Oh, why the heck not? Let's take care of the sewers right now. There's a boatload of Pokemon down here, all from the entrance opened up by one of the side missions. Now by this point, Austin John Plays already released his guide saying how he got all 227 shiny Pokemon, and I was following that. Which, by the way, no he didn't. He expressly stated that he didn't get any Onix in that video. So I was beat to the punch on this video by someone who didn't even follow through on that punch to the gut. And what he recommended is running back and forth in this corridor specifically to spawn in a breadth of Pokemon like Litwick, Skrelp, Dragalge, and Noibat. But man, this just did not work for anything but Skrelp for me. Instead, I tried the other side for a run back and forth that would let me hunt Klefki, Litwick, Inkay, and Scraggy all at the same time. This path is actually pretty simple, just going back and forth to spawn everything in and check every so often. This was how I ended up getting my Klefki, Scraggy, Noibat, and first Litwick, but frankly there's a much easier way to nab the rest up. For the rest of the Litwicks, I simply just did the same method I used on Helioptile, KOing both slots with a big old Earthquake from an Alpha Garchomp, setting a stopwatch to let me save just before the 2 minutes was up, then reset until I found one that was shiny, with the first taking 668 encounters, and the other only 224. Not too shabby, and that's Slampin at level 41 and Chandelure with a Dusk Stone. Last but not least, Inkay. This one's simple to just fast travel, run, and check, complete with a Goomy at the end. But there's also another easier way to get Goomy later, so all I care about is Inkay. It really loved giving me trouble, by the way. I didn't get one in Wild Zone 11, I didn't get one for 4.5 hours while doing the running path for Klefki, Litwick, Scraggy in itself, but when I did this fast travel method, it only took me about an hour and 15 minutes to nail down my shiny Inkay. That's it for the sewers, only 3 Wild Zones left, and we're off to the main city. Wild Zone 18 is the last super duper easy one, as there's a bench right on the outside of the top entrance once you climbed all the scaffolding beyond the static Alpha Lopunny, which is in range of, I shit you not, every single encounter in Wild Zone 18. This became one of my favorite AFK overnight bench hunts pretty easily, since who wouldn't want to easily bag 2 Bagon, evolving one to Shelgon straight away, and an Alpha Salamence, Swablu and Altaria during the day, and a much easier place for Noibat and Noivern compared to the sewers and Lysander Labs respectively at night, and an Alpha Kakuna and another Weedle on the ground behind the Wild Zone, evolving into Beedrill at level 10, but just in range is the most important encounter here, Fennekin. Would you believe if my first shiny Fennekin that I got here only took A, an hour to show up, and B, was an alpha? I didn't either, and I don't know why the game kept feeding me shiny alphas that people were expressly hunting for, this one being one of the most desired, and it just gave it to me for free, but I will take it. Then I just hunted 2 more to evolve one into Braixen at level 16, and the alpha into Delphox at level 36. Really sick shiny, very happy to have it, and again, looking forward to seeing the shiny Mega Evolution in game. But that's all of the Kalos starters, just the ZA and Kanto starters remain. After we're done with Wild Zone 19, that is. If you were wondering where Eevee came in, well, here you go. Technically obtainable with an AFK bench method that I was using for another shiny later on, I ended up getting one from there, but this is the second of 3 spawns that requires it to be daytime and for it to be sunny outside. Man, I love when it's sunny. Double meaning too, since if it weren't for Sunny Explosion Subathon during a large majority of these hunts, I probably would have gone crazy without some distractions. Introducing her to the likes of the gaming historian and professional wrestler Joe Hendry was some of the funniest shit I've seen in a long time. Would highly recommend. That being said, one shiny Eevee does not a full shiny living dex make. Instead, the rest come from Wild Zone 19, where weather is not a concern. Instead, only time of day, as the Cleffa family only spawns during the night. Speaking of, oh my god, that base form was the most irritating Pokemon throughout my fast travels and run-up methods. I went about a half dozen in-game nights just fast traveling, running 50 units at the furthest spawn point for the Cleffa line, and it would just constantly do that over 100 times a night, and Cleffa would not show its face. Instead, I was getting Kangaskhan, Furfrou, Audino, 3 more Eevee to evolve into Umbreon, Sylveon, and Espeon respectively, and a Clefairy. But Cleffa wouldn't appear because Clefairy just kept popping up over and over again. I mean, heck, I probably would have more luck just randomly getting a shiny Drampa to appear, which only happens during the first quarter of the day in Wild Zone 19's gazebo. Yes, that's called a gazebo. I didn't even have to look that up because I've been to way too many goddamn weddings. But I'm not hunting during the day, plus I've got something in store for Trampa later. While it was an arduous search though, I did manage to finally nailed down Cleffa along with the 5 remaining Eevees, evolving them into Vaporeon, Flareon, Jolteon, Leafeon, and Glaceon, all with stones to finish the area. Now 1 Wild Zone remains, Wild Zone 20. Now this area, it's something. There are genuinely 25 new Pokemon to be found in their shiny form from the list of available Pokemon alone, with a pool of a whopping 67 Pokemon that can appear as random alphas underneath the center of Zone 20. I was very lucky to get Drampa and Clefable randomly here, hence why I didn't mention them during the Wild Zone 19 section, but I got so many duplicates while hunting other Pokemon here. Stuff like multiple Garbodor, Phalanx, Barbaracle, a few Pokemon that spawn in this area like Roserade in and of itself. Now at the start, I was doing this a bit inefficiently, just circling the entire Wild Zone on the outside, which did result in some very common shinies to get here, such as Scrafty and Malamar, but it is not the most efficient way of going about things. First of all, the grass and water starters are probably best handled overnight or in chunks of working on different tasks, such as some of the Nuzlocke videos I released during the production of this video, as you can AFK bench not only the grass and water starters, but also a few Pokemon that pop up in their spawners like Gardevoir, which I ended up with like 15 of by the end of this. Seriously, even one of them was an alpha. I hate Gardevoir with a passion now, as well as Roserade, hence why we didn't pick up 3 Budew earlier, we only got 2. However, it does take a while for those spawns to not be those 2, or worse, for the water, Dragalge or Malamar in the water spawners, as they're all 35% chances in their spots, leaving only 30% to go to a 15% divide of one starter and 15% to the other, with Chikorita and Bulbasaur as well as Totodile and Squirtle belonging to the grass and water spawns respectively. I should also note the bench reset here is also in range of a Fletchling on the outside, so if you didn't get all 3 of them for the line in or around Wild Zone 3, this is by far the easiest way to finish off the line due to the amount of time spent here hunting for every Pokemon. It took me a few nights of on and off hunting to find everything. If I would wager a guess, I'd say I'd probably spent over 100 in-game hours in Zone 20 alone, but it was enough to nab up 3 Squirtle, evolving one into Wartortle at level 16 and another into Blastoise at level 36, 3 Totodile, one of which being an alpha, evolving one into Croconaw at level 18 and another into Feraligatr at level 30, then 3 Bulbasaur on the grass side, with one evolving into Ivysaur at level 16 and another into Venusaur at level 32. But Chikorita. Oh my god, Chikorita. I did not get a single shiny Chikorita before getting 3 of every one of the previous starters. That's right, I sat there and got Gardevoir after Gardevoir after Gardevoir after Roserade after Bulbasaur after Gardevoir with nothing to show for the first 3 slots in the Pokedex. So I gave up for the time being. I genuinely am so tired of not doing anything that I need to go work on some other encounters, namely the fire type area. These are the only starters in here that are unable to be hunted by an AFK bench method. So it's time for some manual hunting, baby! Unfortunately, there's only 2 spawns here that have a 35% chance of either Hippowdon or Lucario, totaling for 70, and a 15% chance of either Charmander or Tepig, totaling for 30 to make 100 combined. Now, that sounds pretty horrendous, but I was just in luck. Thankfully, spawn overloading can work here as well, by attracting the Pokemon from one spawner to the opposite door, as there's one entrance on each side of the fire area. I can overload the spawner by keeping them at the door and moving 65 units away from the pin placed on top of the pile of Pokemon. Sure, it takes about a half hour to set up, but fact is that we're going from 2 spawns all the way up to 7. The closest one to Centrico Plaza spawns 1 of each, but at the back, it only spawns 3 out of the 4, so you're likely getting Hippowdon and Lucario, then only one of the starters. Because of this though, it makes quite the easy task to go through and grab Hippowdon, Lucario, and the 3 Charmanders, one of which evolving into Charmeleon at level 16, and the final into Charizard at level 36. Oh my god, Tepig. This Pokemon was the worst hunt in the entire game. I spent, no joke, a solid week on the fire area alone. I kept hunting. I kept every Pokemon there. No matter if they showed up shiny, I would just leave them there so that they didn't have the chance of the shiny chance for Tepig being overridden, because if I didn't, which for a few days I didn't do this, I ended up finding 17 shiny Charmanders, to the point where I stopped capturing them because I was so tired of seeing their stupid orange faces. They're not even orange, they're yellow. I found 2 alpha shinies. I reset over an alpha shiny Charmander because I was so mad that I wasn't getting Tepig. And I have to imagine that a lot of people are probably mad at me for that, but I'm telling you, I was just fast traveling over and over again, thousands upon thousands, probably over 10,000 fast travels, to the point where I just stopped giving a fuck about how many I was doing. Meanwhile, getting Aggron in the nearby junkyard area, since I figured it would take me a while to get all the starters, but not this damn long. Only managing to pop off after my first Tepig after 3 days. Great. Another 3 days pass? Nothing. Finally, on my 7th day, I not only got my second Tepig, but my third and final Tepig, evolving one into Pignite at level 17 and the other into Emboar at level 36. Crazily enough, that day must have felt so bad for me that I not only got one, not 2, but all 3 Chikoritas, evolving one into Bayleaf at level 16 and another into Meganium at level 32. I got very lucky at the end, but I guess I consider it the power of the law of averages due to the suffering caused by Tepig. I mean, my god, a week for 3 Pokemon. I love Gen 5, but god, if that didn't continue to instill that Snivy is the best starter of the Gen 5 bunch. Seriously, why did Tepig, the third in the line of a firefighting starter lineage, get a Mega Evolution with Emboar, but Serperior didn't? It feels like Blaziken getting one in X and Y all over again, only to have to wait until Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire for Sceptile and Swampert. Anyway, that's all for the Pokemon in the Wild Zones. I genuinely can't recommend doing hunting with the Alphas if you're looking for any specific Pokemon, but the area is overloadable from 2 encounters to 6, so if you just want a fun roulette of potential shiny Pokemon, I imagine there's some fun challenges you can do with friends, like first to 3 shinies wins. Make a team with the first 3 shiny Alphas you catch and battle with them with no changes. Something like that, I imagine, could make for a fun time. Now, of course, that's only if I'm talking about dedicated hunting. In addition to the random Drampa and Clefable I got earlier, as well as a shiny female Hippowdon to give me both gender differences, I ended up getting a few new Pokemon here too, like Electros, Scolipede, Dragonite, and Goodra. Fantastic on the first, since I didn't end up having to look for a third Tynamo in Wild Zone 10, same with the second regarding Venipede or Whirlipede in Zone 5. Dragonite means I don't have to do an overload spawn for Dratini and Dragonair more than once, more on that in a bit, and Goodra means I don't have to wait for the respawn timer of Goomy. Anyway, that brings me to a total of 194 Pokemon, but I'm nowhere near done. There's still quite a few Pokemon remaining in the city itself. And I guess if I already mentioned their final evolutions, I may as well catch their earlier stages. Dratini has a very accessible spawn in Magenta Sector 8 on the rooftops just across this webbing. Now this spawner can be overloaded, but only by using an alpha spawn of either Dratini or Dragonair, which you can use the nearby bench to get, since otherwise they are very skittish species. I used the strategy described by Panfro Games by leading it away to the webbing bridge, saving as soon as it breaks its leash, getting away from it before it tries to fling itself off the building, which can happen, it's very funny when it does, reach this corner, save, and hard reset, then go back over and lead that Dratini back to where a new spawn will now be, bench from there, and boom, that's both Dratini and Dragonair spawning at the same time, as well as a bunch of Bellsprout around here. I actually ended up getting 3 shiny Bellsprout over the course of this bench hunt, so if you didn't get any from Wild Zone 5 or 10, don't worry, you're probably gonna get them here. Stupidly, I ended up getting 2 shiny Dragonair since I reloaded the overload for some reason after catching 1 Dragonair, but I did manage to get Dratini in not all that much time. Thank God for my normal sleep cycle being around 4 hours and getting 2 of those a night. Makes getting up in between to check if I've gotten any shinies from AFK benching not the worst feeling in the world, but boy am I looking forward to catching up on full sleep without interruptions. Dear lord, I've been doing this for almost a month. I should also note up here with Dratini and Dragonair, there's a close by spawn of Orange Flower Flabebe, so if you're looking for shinies of all 5 forms of the line, here's your ticket to a non-red flower spawn unlike in Wild Zone 3. As for the Gumi line, you're just gonna need it to rain, and I would recommend just benching anywhere until you see rainy weather right at the start, then head to the entrance to the Lumio sewers you take for the Rust Syndicate mission during the main story where you clear out all of those Mega Shards. Out here, there's 2 spawns for either Gumi or Sliggoo, albeit with the latter with a 5% chance, so it's not like it'll be jerk like Cleffa was earlier to me. It doesn't take more than an hour and a half for me to bag both Gumis, evolving one into Sliggoo at level 40. Looking forward to likely having to hunt this again in Hyperspace Lumios in order to get the Hisuian form. Oh god, I guess that means I'm gonna need a 3rd Shiny Scyther for Cleavor. I should probably get another Pikachu for a Alolan Raichu. Oh, I've got a few weeks, I can afford to take a break once I'm done with this base Pokedex. Next up, the Abra line. There's a bench just outside of Wild Zone 8 that is within a 50 unit radius of these 2 Abra that happen to just sleep down here with a construction worker, just standing there for no reason. So that's just an AFK bench reset method to get 3 Abra, one of which evolving into Kadabra at level 16, and another into Alakazam following a trade. Dedenne is a weird one given that it shares pretty much every spawn it has with a Mulga and only one at a time, but the easiest one for me to find was within fast travel distance of North Boulevard's Pokemon Center, with either a Dedenne or a Mulga chomping down on a berry with a 50-50 split as to which one will appear. I got lucky and didn't have the coin flip tails, so heads for me as well as Dedenne. I kind of dig the brown on this. Not very many brown shinies that don't end up looking like Poopy Doodoo or Hitmonlee. Next up is Ghastly, which I ended up just hunting this accidentally in 2 spots, one of which was from using the fast travel to Nouveau Cafe truck number 2 next to Wild Zone 12 over and over, which is also useful for getting the likes of a 2nd Spritzy, evolving into Aromatisse after holding a sachet during a trade. As for Haunter and Gengar, I ended up hunting these from a bench method that was originally intended for Riolu, seeing as there's a convenient bench in Magenta Sector 9 that hits not only that, but about a half-dozen Binacle that ended up appearing nearly all shiny at once for me. I mean, literally, this was the Binacle farm. If you want one of these, by all means, this is the best place for it. However, since Riolu is the 3rd and last encounter that only appears when it's daytime and sunny outside, that means there's gotta be some nighttime spawns that take its place, leaving the opening for the other 2 Ghastlies to show up, one evolving into Haunter at level 25, and the other into Gengar after a trade, as well as a 2nd Shuppet just behind this bench, giving me Bayonet once I've hit level 37. A shame I didn't get Riolu, but frankly, I'm expecting to have to get this manually without benching due to the weather restriction, so I may as well pull out of an area with everything else in tow. Until I noticed that I accidentally got a shiny Hawlucha here as well. I did not realize this spawner was capable of yielding one, let alone it was a 10% spawner, but I will frickin' take it. Now, there is a spawner you can overload with a Pidgey and a Hawlucha elsewhere that is a much easier place to get it, because this one for me was completely accidental. But I would refer to someone else who actually did this specific hunt, in this case Papa Hefe's video on the subject, as I just straight up didn't need to do this one, link in the description. With them in tow though, do you remember the bench that I mentioned during Wild Zone 13 on that key-shaped building that was on the rooftop and could potentially lead to a shiny Alpha Spritzy? Well, on the other side of that building is a set of 2 benches, one of which is always occupied during the day on the right, but on the left is a completely open bench, with 4 spawns on the right for the elemental monkeys and a spawn on the left for Larvitar. If you're gonna do your monkey hunt here, you're way better off just leaving Larvitar for here as well instead of Wild Zone 15. May as well beat 4 birds with 1 large bench. But if you'd rather do your hunts manually, Jean's Sector 4 has some trees that are just barely in reach of a fast traveling to a Pokemon Center and running into the corner to get within the 50 unit radius of 3 spawns. While I was trying to use this for Ghastlies as well at night earlier and having no luck, I did end up getting not only a Pansage but a Pansear shiny here as well, though it's certainly not the most efficient spot. I'd very much just recommend using the rooftop bench in order to get all 6 of them. In my case, I only got Simisage, Simisear, and 2 Panpour, evolving one into Simipour with a Water Stone, as well as 3 shiny Larvitars. Funnily enough, my favorite Pokemon is Tyranitar, despite not liking the Gen 2 games as much as other Pokemon games due to the poopy level balancing and mid-game design of Johto, along with the horrendously bad accessibility to cool Johto Pokemon that are stuck in Kanto, like Murkrow, Misdreavus, the Houndour line, and yes, Larvitar. And while hunting all 3 of the line, I ended up finding a shiny Alpha. I will not call them Shalfa, that is the dumbest term ever. Just say the 2 words, you have enough time to do so. Evolving one of the 3 into Pupitar at level 30, and the Alpha into Tyranitar at level 55. Only 10 Pokemon remain, and we're headed back to the Magenta Sector, this time Sector 7, because there is a bench that I used to get my only non-Wild Zone 19 shiny Eevee. Well, the reason I was using that bench was primarily for Ralts, in which case I need 3 more of them to fill in for Ralts itself, as well as Curlia at level 20, and thankfully a male popped up within those 3 to give me access to Gallade with a Dawnstone. Another shiny alpha too. Then again, I don't ever want to look at this Pokemon line ever again, even if it's a shiny alpha. I already have enough Gardevoirs. 7 Pokemon remain, and hilariously one of them is an extremely easy bench hunt. Absol is just perched up on a rooftop on Jean Street, and there's a bench right next to him. Lather, rinse, repeat resets for about an hour and a half, and that's a shiny Absol. Thank God I'm not looking for an alpha though. I saw that Absol Blog's Pokemon got his pretty quickly, but God help Koseki Bijou. She has been looking for dozens of hours for her shiny alpha Absol, and I just feel so horrible, man. I'm like, please let yourself play the game, girl. Oh my God. Now, of course, Riolu. I figured I was going to have to take the time to do the rooftop run on Rouge Sector 4. Rogue Sector 4? I kind of want to say Rouge Sector 4 because I said rooftop run and I'm thinking Sonic, but it is kind of inconvenient to set up. I basically had to wait for a day, go up there, save, and then hunt it until it turned from sunny to another type of weather until I got an entire sunny day. It didn't take long for that to happen, thankfully, though, but boy, it took about 24 daytime cycles and quite the number of electrocuted birds to get to the shiny. But once I ran up on it, boom, there's shiny Riolu, probably in the top 10 hardest hunts to do in the game. And it wasn't even really that bad. However, this is where the top 5 worst hunts in the game happens, because it's time for the last 5 Pokemon, the fossils. They are the only Pokemon in the game that both aren't shiny locked like the legendaries are, but are unaffected by the shiny charm. I haven't the slightest clue why, but it sure did make this video take a few days longer to make than I had hoped. Simply put, we're looking for Tyrant, Tyrantrum, Amara, Aurorus, and Aerodactyl. Jaw sale fossils are $20,000 each, and Old Ambers are $30,000 from the Stone Emporium. So these are very expensive hunts if you want to do them optimally. I settled on spending $800,000 on the 4 Gen 6 fossils, getting 40 apiece for a total of $2,400,000, and then $900,000 on 30 Old Ambers, considering I only need to get 1 Aerodactyl as opposed to 2 of the other 2. Tyrant was up first since, of course, I love me the friendly little blue dinosaur, and this one, oh boy, this is where I started to realize that time was going to add up quickly. I timed it out with a stopwatch, and with those 40 revivals, took exactly 9 minutes to get through from pressing A on the title screen to the last revival for me to check both boxes. Now this might sound great if you have a turbo controller like me. You just stick the chip clip on the A button and turbo that while doing other tasks, but wow, this was when I realized I could not focus on anything within that little span of time in between each check. I imagine it has to do with my unmedicated ADHD, since I've noticed that I very much need to get into a flow state for work. So I basically just did a load of laundry there, washed dishes here, swept a room there, mopped a floor there, and while I was able to clean most of my house, I really wish I could have worked more effectively on the scripting, voicing, and editing of this video, but my brain would take 5 minutes to assess where I am before getting to do something for like 3 minutes and remembering, oh, I have a timer going, and preparing to turn it off. It's awful, but that's just how it went. Now imagine sitting there for 15 plus hours a day having that problem while waiting for a shiny to pop out. For me, that was a reality, as my first Tyrant took a little over 12.5 hours, finally popping up shiny after encountered 3,385. Below odds is appreciated, but certainly that means I'm in for 4 more days of this, right? Well, hilariously, it was more like 2.5. My second Tyrant took only 390 encounters, taking about an hour and a half before bringing it to level 39 and evolving into Tyrantrum during the day. Then my first Amora took only 720 encounters, taking a little under 3 hours to nail it down. Well shoot, 3 below odds is wonderful. Then I hit the wall of the second Amora. I spent an entire day from wake up to sleepy time, 4,000 encounters, and nothing. The next day, another 1,000 encounters, nothing. However, once I ran into encounter 5,078, Amora number 2 finally appeared, letting me raise it to level 39 and evolve into Aurorus during the night, taking just a hair over 19 hours worth of encounters. That's 226 of 227. 1 more Pokemon remains. Now, hilariously, I've already gotten a shiny Aerodactyl in my Fire and Leaf Green playthrough thanks to the power of RNG manipulation. Link again is in the iCard on screen or in the description to check out in a new tab after this. So it would be great if I could transfer that all the way up through Bank and into home, but alas, I'm forced into resets. Now for Aerodactyl, I was doing only 30 at a time as opposed to 40, mostly because I was so damn tired of money grinding from the Infinite ZA Royale. I mean, seriously, I've done over 70 rounds of getting 50,000 points and fighting a boss trainer to earn some horribly useless items that I just sell. I think I deserve a break. Though I probably will need to grind out some money once the DLC arrives, both for balls and for other items. By the way, I will be streaming the entire shiny hunting for the DLC right here on this channel when that comes out, and I suppose that'll be a quote-unquote part 3 of this ZA saga. Maybe one of these days I'll actually nuzlocke the damn game. Each reset takes about 6 minutes and 45 seconds for 30 fossils to be revived, so after about 8.5 hours on the very last encounter of my 73rd soft reset, encounter 2190 ends up being the pink pterodactyl with blue wings, putting my total at 227 and a time of 460 hours and 43 minutes of in-game time. And that's the end, until again the DLC comes out, but I don't want to think about that right now. This took far too long. This was the most time I've ever spent on a video in my nearly 7 years of making videos on this platform. Straight up, I thought my Retro Achievements 100% challenge of Pokemon Crystal Clear was long with about 128 hours of footage. This video had 276 hours of recorded footage, and that's only about half of what I ended up putting in time-wise, because if I go into my Switch 2 profile, I'm sitting at a whopping 555 or more hours, and that tracks game time through the soft resets that I was doing. The Fossils, Litwick, Wild Zone 20, a few others. So again, if you have the means to, I'd very much appreciate it if you could throw me a super thanks in the comments, or use my affiliate link in the description for gamer subs to get 10% off by using code Chaotic Meat at checkout. It would help a ton considering I wasn't able to get a sponsor on this video. I hope you enjoyed, and until the DLC comes out, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.